In today's video, I want to talk about, is the Panasonic G9 worth buying in 2020? Short answer, yes. For those of you who want to know a little bit more about it, this video is for you. So I've had this camera since September of 2019. So what, 6 months or something now? And it's held up very well, actually over 6 months. But anyways, it's held up very well. Like, this is my workhorse camera for professional work, for these YouTube videos. This is the camera that I use. And before I got the Sony a7 II, this is the camera that I took all my pictures with. It was like the one-stop shop camera for me, and it worked perfectly for me. It still does. Like, I am not complaining about the picture quality out of this camera at all. It is great. I got the Sony, as I've said many times, because I was interested in full frame camera, and I think this is the best entry level full frame camera to get into. Now, the Panasonic G9 is a micro four thirds camera, so the sensor is much smaller than a full frame sensor. As you saw in my last video, you can still get a really good dynamic range from this camera. It's great for that. So if you just want one camera to take videos with and shoot pictures with, I always recommend the Panasonic G9 to people. So looking at the camera on Amazon, you can still pick it up for $1,000. It's not the cheapest camera, but it has so many great features. And they recently updated it back in October, I think. I forgot when, but they even added more features to this camera. So I'm sure it's going to get better over time. Just to give you a quick overview of the camera, you have this LED screen here on the top, which is really cool. That's one of the reasons I got it. It also has dual card slots on the side, so you can put two cards in there. To be honest, I've only used that once. Well, I keep two cards in here, but I've only used that feature once. I was shooting a lot of interviews one day, and I was shooting them in 4K, and even with 64 gig SD cards, I rolled over to the second SD card. That's it. That's the only time I've ever really filled up an SD card on here. And even with that, I had maybe like 1,000 raw images on the camera. I'm gonna put this thing down. It is heavy as ever. So when you look at the camera just by itself, it is a beefy micro four thirds camera. It's almost as big. Actually, I think it's bigger than my Sony camera, which, you know, some people would say, why don't you just get a full frame camera at that point if you're getting such a big micro four thirds camera. The difference here is the lenses. So the lenses on micro four third cameras are much smaller than full frame cameras. This lens here, the lens I shoot all my videos for, is 12 to 60, and it's like f4 to f5.6 or something like that. In a full frame equivalent, it's double, so to be a 24 to 120. If you look at the comparable 24 to 105 for the Sony lens, it's much bigger than this lens here. So for size, you know, I can go around with this, and it's still, you know, a big heavy camera, which I like. I personally like those type of cameras, but you're able to get smaller lenses, so you don't have to lug around really big lenses. Now, I do have the battery pack on it, and I picked this one up. This is the newer battery pack. It's much cheaper than the official Panasonic battery pack. I haven't had any problems with it, but it gives you an extra battery in here, and then it gives you all the controls when you shoot vertically, which I tend to shoot a lot of vertical pictures, not video or anything, but I shoot a lot of vertical pictures, so it's nice to have that button here on the side. This camera also shoots up to 4K 60p in 10-bit. If that's something you're into, you can shoot that. I don't shoot 4K a lot on this camera. I will if a client wants me to, but personally I don't, because it takes up a lot of space and I'm just not into editing 4K video right now. It shoots JPEG and RAW pictures, and you can even shoot an 80 megapixel image. So this is a 20.3 megapixel sensor. So the way it shoots that is it shifts the sensor around in 4 different places and stitches the picture together. Really, I've never used, I mean, I've done it and I've like tried to see if there's a difference in the picture quality. I haven't seen a difference in that picture quality going through to the higher megapixel image, other than it takes up way more space on your memory card, or if you're trying to edit it on your computer, you know, it's a lot of space. Maybe if you're going to print these at really large sizes, but even then, you like an iPhone can shoot like a billboard image. So I don't know. You can do it if you want to do it. I don't use it ever, but you can do it. It has so many buttons. This is the thing that I love about this camera, is that there are so many buttons that you can program, so you can really make this camera fit and work the way that you want to work, like button wise. On a side, if you guys are interested in knowing more about like the button layout and all the different things you can do with the buttons and menus, let me know down in the comments. I can make that video. When I was purchasing this camera, I was looking for something like that and never found anything specifically for the G9. It was always for the like GH5 or things like that type of camera, but never for the G9, which I thought was weird. It also has microphone jack, headphone jack, and USB type 3. So it's not USB-C, but USB type 3, so you can charge the battery that's in here. But I find with this battery pack, I've never actually taken the battery out of the bottom here to charge it. So usually I will replace the battery that's in here, and I treat the battery that's in the camera itself as a like emergency battery. And I've gotten, you know, many days without having to worry about battery life. I did pick up 3 extra batteries. Everything that I'm talking about, I'll have links down below, but I picked up 3 extra batteries just in case, and it works fine for me. One of the other killer features for me is swivel screen. So if you're trying to record yourself, much easier than what I'm setting up with the Sony camera here. And then the joystick up here, you can use to set your points, your focus points, which is so nice. It also has touch, so if you want to touch to where you want to focus, you can do that too. You also have the on the top button on the top screen here, if you can turn it on and then turn on the, I don't know if you can see this, you can turn on a backlight, so at night you can actually read the digital readout here on the top. Again, cool little feature. I like having the top screen so I can see all the settings without having to look at the back of the camera. Like I said, overall, this is just a really good camera. Video quality that I get out of this camera is so good. Hey, sorry to interrupt here, but my past self forgot to tell you some other things that are really cool about this camera that I totally love. One is the image stabilization. This camera has some of the best image stabilization that I've ever seen. The Sony a7 II that I have has really good image stabilization, but this Micro Four Thirds camera is phenomenal. I can get really good handheld shots, taking pictures, shooting video, even with longer lenses. Also, the build quality of this camera, I know I talked about like there's so many buttons, which I like, but it really feels robust. This is one of the best cameras, well-built cameras that you can get. It's also weather sealed, which is amazing. I love having a weather sealed camera with a weather sealed lens. I don't have to worry about, you know, getting a little rain or dust or water or snow or whatever I'm in on my camera. Okay, now back to the video. So if you guys are looking to get into video or just upgrade into, you know, from your, let's say you're using a point and shoot camera or even your phone or an older camera and you're like, I really want to, you know, upgrade into something a little bit better, or, you know, downgrade in size so you don't want to carry really big lenses anymore, you can pick up a Micro Four Thirds camera and get killer images, killer video, and it's definitely not cheaper than a full frame camera. You know, the lens that I want to get next for pictures would be the 100 to 400 f4 lens, and I think that's like $1,000. So they're definitely not cheaper. However, they are cheaper than, again, that in full frame terms would be a 200 to 800 millimeter lens. That would be a giant lens and a giant cost. The great part about the day and age that we live in is that there are so many choices. You have, you know, Micro Four Thirds all the way up to the full frame cameras and APS-C. Our iPhones and Android phones are getting better. Like, there's so many ways to make content right now. Thank you for watching this video. I hope this was informative. Again, if you want to see a more in-depth overview of the Panasonic G9 and like the buttons and the menus and stuff like that, let me know down in the comments and I will see what I can do. Thank you for watching this video. As always, talk to you guys later. Bye bye.